Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer. Welcome to Lost in the Wasteland, my weekly interview show where I get a chance to get a little bit more understanding of somebody else's perspective on movies. And this time I have a old college friend, Chelsea, coming back on for her second time on the channel. It's been a while, but Chelsea, thank you so much for coming back on.
Thank you for having me.
And before we jump into things, would you like to shamelessly plug anything and let anybody know where they can find you?
All right, I'm an artist and a big anime lover. I've got an awesome Discord community. A lot of people have subscribed to your channel from it, so just want to give them a shout out and say thanks for,
Awesome.
supporting my friend here too. But yeah, if you want to find me on TikTok or I stream on Twitch or Instagram, you can find me. I'm Chelsea Midori.
Awesome. And I will put links in the bio so then you can find that. And I do keep up with all of Chelsea's TikToks and Instagram and stuff like that. So, and I'm sure we'll be talking a lot of anime today. So exciting. So, but to get to the questions, so starting off, these are kind of like watch list questions. And what's a previous released film, Chelsea, that you haven't gotten a chance to watch it that you're most excited to check out?
So the first thing that comes to mind since it just came out is
Mhm.
the new Demon Slayer movie To the Swordsmith Village. I saw everyone all like on some people just like by the nearby theaters, but like
Mhm.
mostly just on Instagram. A lot of friends went dressed in cosplay and everything, and it looked like a lot of fun. After seeing the previous season, I'm really excited for the new season to come out. So having that movie in between is really exciting. So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing next.
I actually watched it a couple Fridays ago and it was a little unexpected because like I was expecting like a movie and didn't realize it's basically a couple episodes of the show strung together. I'm like, "Oh, I feel a little lost here." But like there's some really cool stuff in it, so I appreciated that. So as somebody who doesn't really watch and outside looking in, it still had a lot of cool things in it. So it kind of reminded me because like there's moments where it like starts running credits and does the intro to again because they're actual episodes. I'm like, oh wait a minute, I shot probably should have looked into this more. But it kind of reminded me. I know one time I went with a couple of my friends to watch the first three episodes of Samurai Jack in a theater, and that
Okay.
was really cool. So if you're a fan of Demon Slayer, and I'm pretty sure it's still playing out there because good for all these anime coming out, making some good money and sticking around in theaters during all of this. So there's definitely a fan base, obviously, to get there. And like I was in a theater at like 1 o'clock on a Friday because I had off, and there was at least like 30 something people in the theater. I'm like, they're all probably like college age or like high school. I'm like, wait a minute. I guess they didn't
Yeah.
have school on a Friday afternoon, so they were all checking out Demon Slayer.
Yeah, that's a
But
sizable amount of people though for 1 o'clock on a Friday.
I know I wasn't expecting it. It was a very gloomy and like rainy Friday. I'm like, well, at least they're finding something cool to do on a Friday. So there you
Yeah.
go. Now, Chelsea, what's a movie that's going to be coming out that you're most excited for?
So it's coming out in April, so very, very soon. I
Mhm.
saw the trailer for it so long ago, but it's almost here. But there's a movie called Suzume coming out, and it is Makoto Shinkai who made Your Name. It's his
Mhm.
latest film, and Your Name was an absolute masterpiece. So I'm very, very, very excited for Suzume.
I heard a lot of great things about your name, and I got lucky because they were playing at AMC Hamilton back in like probably 2018, 2019. I got to see it in a theater. And then I think I'm trying to remember what theater I was just at, but they had all like the cutouts and like the advertisements for Susume already, and it's like, well, they're getting ready,
Yeah, coming
so it'll
soon.
be a exciting thing to go check out in the theater because I am a fan of his work and excited to see his latest anime coming out in theaters. That's always a fun thing when you actually get to see them in a theater, and usually most people who go to them are like excited fans too, so it's like a fun environment in the theater too. So go support them out to
Yeah,
everybody watching. So now I always love asking this question because most people hate the idea of remaking things, but sometimes there's something out there that you just wish that got remade. But Chelsea, what would you like to see get remade?
I definitely understand why that can be a really fun question a lot of the time for people. In this case, I would love to see proper remakes of certain live action adaptations. Like, there's like a ongoing joke that anime go to die to Netflix because Netflix makes these live action adaptations that are terrible. So things like Death Note, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Dragon Ball. There's a ton that I could think of that I would love to see be remade in a way that the fan base would be more excited about.
Yeah, because I had watched the Death Note movie before I actually watched the anime, and I'm like, I hope the anime is better than this because this was bad.
Was yeah, that's one of the roughest ones I could think.
And I have zero hope. I feel bad for saying this zero hope in that Avatar Last Airbender show that Netflix is going to be coming out with,
Yeah.
especially after the creator of the show left. And I'm like, well, now nobody's stopping them. But we already got one horrible adaptation of it. It's just like, well, I don't want another one. It's really sad. But even like a lot of people were disappointed with Cowboy Bebop, got canceled after one season of the live action one. I'm just glad they used Tank. I was gonna be like, you have to, and that got me excited at every beginning of every episode. I'm like, this is kind of silly. Like the show in general, I'm like, some of these things don't translate well to live action. Like you'll see John Cho like jumping through the air, doing all these crazy kicks. I'm like, this kind of looks silly. It looks
Yeah.
less silly when it's a cartoon, like an animated person doing these
I
things.
know,
That's a
right?
challenge, right? But some of them, it's just like, how'd you mess this up? But they do.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in Death Note that, like with Cowboy Bebop, I thought exactly the same thing when I watched it, where I was like, oh, that was probably pretty hard to like translate into live action.
Mhm.
But yeah, Death Note was one of those where I'm like, it wasn't even just that. It was more than that. It was just like not a good film overall.
I'm like, I like Willem Dafoe and everything, but like the whole rest of the movie's bad.
I say the same thing. I feel like that was the best part about it is like him cast as Rook was the best part about it, but everything else just fell short, I thought. So
Just
I'd love
didn't
to
work.
see that remade properly.
We'll see. And hopefully you're not heartbroken again. That's
Yeah.
always the tricky thing. It's like they can remake it that they could do it bad again. So that's the unfortunate thing.
Yeah.
But Chelsea, what's your fondest memory of going to see a movie in a theater?
I know it's like silly because it's so long ago, but I would say the Pokemon, the first movie, I just remember it was one of my first memories of going to a theater in general. And
Mm,
the music, the movie itself, it was like just so exciting. Everything about Pokemon, the first movie as a kid was just amazing. And even when I watch it again as an adult, like the nostalgia. So I
mm.
have to say that's my favorite.
They killed Ash, and then we all cried. So like I like that and the weird like clone versions of like Charizard, Venusaur, and Blastoise are the things that and Mewtwo obviously that you remember most from that movie, Mew and Mewtwo. But that was such a cool thing when that came out. I would say it's like Pokemon was so big back then, but Pokemon's still big now. So it
Mhm.
keeps going.
Really does.
I was walking around catching Gimmigholes earlier, so my Pokemon Go. So there you go. But yeah, those first couple Pokemon movies were a blast. And I remember being like mind blown when a movie started. It's like, what's this thing? And like Dom fans in it. It's like, wait a minute, this isn't one of the original Pokemon.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that too.
Brings back wonderful memories of now it's like those the Pokemon movies like drop on Netflix. I think the most recent one's like straight to Netflix. I'm like, well, there you go.
I haven't seen any of the newer ones, honestly. It's been a long time since I've seen a Pokemon movie, so.
Oh, what was it? It was it's that grass ape Pokemon that's one of like the newer like pseudo legendaries, I think it was.
Mhm.
But like I keep getting Zauru and another Pokemon mixed up with each other because they almost have the same exact name.
So
But
many.
like that came out, it's like after you make like 1,000 Pokemon, some of them just bleed together. So
Real.
there you go. Now, Chelsea, what's a film that really exceeded your expectations when you saw it?
So I know we kind of touched on this when we were talking about Demon Slayer before, about how it kind of ends up being a few episodes strung together. But when Demon Slayer Mugen Train came out, nobody had any idea that it was going to be just the next
Yeah.
first episodes. But that definitely was at the time. I remember thinking, wow, there's so much the animation, the music,
Mhm.
the story, just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful movie. And I remember being blown away when I first saw Mugen Train.
Like that's exciting thing too because like it's funny because a lot of the anime even get released as like Fathom events and stuff like that because it's just like it's an event kind of thing and being able to go to the theater and just getting super excited about it. And you also bring up an important point. There's nothing like sitting in a theater and just getting blasted with like anime music and you're just like this it's like they're going way harder than they needed to for this, but they did.
Yes.
It's like I feel like it's disappointing if they have like a theme that's not like blowing you out of your seat and you're just like, well, my expectations are too high now.
Yeah.
But that's exciting. And you know, it's funny because and like I'm sure we'll talk about this, but like there's certain anime shows that I've watched and like I've watched the couple most recent like Dragon Ball films and stuff like that. And like that's one I actually watched when I was growing up.
Hmm.
I obviously used to watch Pokemon as well, but like sometimes it's just like I see everything movie related, and sometimes I'll like plop into a series that I've never watched this before, but we're gonna see how it goes, and that seems to happen a lot with the anime, and like the One Piece movie, which like I've never watched a single episode of that show, which I know you are a humongous fan of, and I even was like, this movie was great.
Oh, yay.
So it works for people who've never watched a single episode too. So there
I
you go.
agree. I
They
agree.
won.
Yeah.
Now, I always love asking this question. Sometimes it's a little hard because not everybody's like big into reading and stuff like that. But I can imagine you probably have definitely some like manga and stuff like that you'd probably want to see. But if you could adapt any written work as a film, what would it be?
So it actually, as much as there's plenty of manga that I would love
Mhm.
to see as well become animated movies, what I actually think of is my favorite author. I used to just any book he's ever written, I've just like read feverishly. I
Mhm.
love him, Haruki Murakami. And he's sort of in the genre of magical realism. And I think of the movie, and it's not his work, but Paprika. And that was an anime movie that I really liked. And it was made by Satoshi Kon, who makes Millennium Actress and Perfect Blue, definitely one of my favorite anime
Mhm.
directors of all time. Unfortunately, he's not with us anymore, but I would love to see any work by Haruki Murakami become something like that, like into like a sort of a movie with that kind of feel to it. I don't know, but that's been like a little dream of mine. I don't know.
That's pretty cool. I'm a big fan of Perfect Blue, and like like channeling any kind of energy like that. That's pretty great. So there you go. Um, but I'll have to check out some of his work. This is also a fun question for me because like people bring up stuff I'm like I've never heard of that. It's going on my reading list. So there you go. I've also got a very interesting wide variety of answers for this question from like articles and magazines to books to comic books to the
Interesting.
Bible was an answer one time.
Wow, cool.
And I'm like, get Darren Aronofsky to keep making other books of the Bible, just like no one. I'm just like, and I'm sure a lot of people will be very happy, which did that
Yeah.
movie. But now, kind of shifting gears into like certain aspects of movies, and I'll admit I try not to watch trailers a whole lot anymore because they give away so much. And honestly, most of the time I just watch them when I'm going to the actual theater and then have to sit through half an hour of them. And also Nicole Kidman telling me why I need to go to the movies, and I'm like, I'm already here. But Chelsea, what's your favorite movie trailer?
So I've been watching so many recently, ever since sort of, you know, um, especially during COVID when I started, made the TikTok. Now I
Yeah.
have a Discord community. We're always just throwing the newest trailers at each other. Um, so something that I remember seeing a trailer for that I thought was really good was this movie Bubble. And
Mhm.
I almost want to say it because like when I watched the movie, I didn't like it as much as I thought I was going to when I liked the trailer. There are a lot of great classics too, like the Cowboy Bebop movie trailer and certain other ones that I've definitely talked about with friends and remember seeing. But as of like the newer ones, I'd probably say Bubble had a really good one.
Awesome. I remember watching that on Netflix when that came out. Speaking of anime on Netflix. But like I'm pretty sure the only time I ever watched any of the trailer was because Netflix likes to bombard you with things when you finish watching something and then it just shows you the same trailers for the same stuff over and over
Yeah.
again. But like I had a lot of fun with that movie. I didn't love it, but I thought it was like cool concept and idea and stuff like that. That's always the worst though when you watch a trailer. I'm like, this is amazing, and then you watch the movie. I'm like, why was the trailer better than this movie?
Yeah.
But it happens, and sometimes you can have a really bad trailer, and then it turns out it was a great movie.
Yeah, of course.
Now, like shifting gears into this and kind of talking about music because it's actually very timely. I just watched like a documentary about sound and how important it can be to like your experience watching a film. But Chelsea, what's a song like your favorite use of like an actual song in a movie?
So there's one of my probably like top 10 favorite anime movies is this movie called Ride Your Wave. And it's sad. The first 20 minutes that you're watching it, it's sad. And then it only progressively gets more sad. It's a lot about grieving and loss. And dealing with that, there's like a song in the very beginning that's supposed to be
Mhm.
this really happy, sweet song. And then it just pulls on your heartstrings throughout the movie every time that the girl sings it. And every time I hear it, I just like tear up. So I think it was a really, good use of a certain song sort of happening, reoccurring over and over again, kind of conveying like a certain emotion.
Well, especially when you could do something like that and evoke an emotion like that on the spot, that's impressive.
Yeah.
And when a film can like embed that song in you and then manipulate you with it throughout the rest of the movie, where it's just like, well, we're gonna play this and you're gonna feel sad, just heartbroken. So that sounds like an interesting use of that. Now, I know personally I'm the kind of person that listens to a lot of movie scores and stuff like that. But Chelsea, if you're gonna sit down and listen to a movie score, what score are you gonna play?
I think it's just in my head because I was late to the game and it was very recent that I watched it. But One Piece Red, I think it's pretty cool that they had an actual idol, Otto, be the voice for Uta in the movie. So I think it's pretty cool that, she's a pretty well-known singer.
Mhm.
And I thought a lot of the songs were really upbeat and fun, and I could totally understand the hype of why everyone's like listening to them so much now, having just seen it. I'm like, okay, they're fun, they're cute.
I remember sitting in the theater being like that same exact thing I said earlier. I'm like, they didn't need to go this hard, making a bunch of like legit pop songs and just like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. And like there's a bunch of them. Like, because obviously
Yeah.
like most of her character is singing throughout the film, and it's just like one after another. I'm just like,
Mhm.
this soundtrack probably is like killing it.
Yeah.
Uh, I would imagine tons and tons of people are listening to it, and that one definitely stood out to me. I thought that was it because like I don't know how much of like the show One Piece relies on music, but
Mhm.
obviously that film definitely did and
Yeah.
really delivered a bunch of really good songs. So they're extremely catchy. They're stuck in my head for a while after seeing it in the theater. Now, my last question for you, Chelsea, and this is always a fun one. I always love asking this question is What's one thing that you wish movies would stop doing?
So I have two answers for this, and one we've
Right ahead.
touched on already. But I loved Mugen Train when I first saw it. Then when I started watching Demon Slayer just weekly, it was like 4 or 5 weeks of seeing what I already saw in the movie, and I had to wait like an extra few weeks to finally see like sort of new anime
Hmm.
content. So I do agree though that it is important, to bring in other people that don't have experience having seen the anime and such. So it is like still a fun experience to see these two movies even without seeing them. But there's been a few other movies that have done that lately. But then also there's certain things that happen too, like in movies where One Piece Red is sort of an example of it. And a lot of the One Piece movies are where they kind of stray away from what's canon. So there's certain things that they will say that like, okay, this one thing is true, but like nothing else is really true to the manga. I don't know if it's just because I'm a avid anime lover and I'm like, oh, I wanted to stick to the exact story. But from that kind of perspective, sometimes I'm just like, they're like designing new story that doesn't actually have to do with what was originally written. So those two things they're kind of like very trendy in anime movies right now. And I sort of like, I don't know, wish they would stop doing it, I guess.
Not gonna lie, I was kind of disappointed because like I'm sitting there like this seems really confusing when I was watching the Demon Slayer movie, and then I had to like do legit digging to find out, wait a minute, this was just a couple episodes together, and I'm just like, I wish I knew that before, because to be perfectly honest, I probably wouldn't have went to go see it in a
Yeah.
theater. But you know what? It worked out for the movie because then it
Yeah.
got my money.
That's how they
Uh,
got you. Yeah.
but that was actually one thing that I was thinking about watching that One Piece Red movie because I'm like, this character seems like she has such a big past with the main character. I'm like, is she an actual character from the show or not? And like, if she's not, then I feel like this is like, hey, I just happen to have this person who is a big part of my life that I've never mentioned before. And like, how many episodes of One Piece are there at this point?
Like over 1,000. So
So it's kind of just like, oh, that's interesting that this person magically appeared out of nowhere. So
yeah.
I was legitimately thinking about that watching the movie. I'm just like, as somebody who's never watched the show, I can't answer this for myself, but I'm like, this feels a little odd. But I imagine when you have that many episodes, it's really hard to keep track of canon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I guess maybe the movies are their like creative outlet to try to shake things up or not. But I know, like, I know I'm somebody that like I've seen all the Marvel movies a lot, and like I'll be sitting there, I'm like, that doesn't make sense because like I've seen it so many times. I'm like, that doesn't fit into this, and that's always the tricky thing is like a fan of something. It's just like if
Yeah.
oh Star Wars does it all the time too, and it's just like, is that canon? Like, I don't think it is. Now Disney's like everything's canon. Video games, books, this random show that we put on a cruise. Like everything. So, but I would imagine that's a bit of a challenge. But like I could see definitely both of those kinds of things where it's just like, and in the end, they're both about money. So,
Hmm.
and which is why they're gonna continue to do them.
Hmm.
So in the end, but now, Chelsea, I always like to wrap up my show by letting my guest ask me a question. So, what would you like to ask the Wasteland Reviewer?
So since we discussed this a little bit, and it's been a big thing in the anime community and even the gaming community, like with movies like Sonic and Mario,
Hmm.
there are a lot of fan bases that can be very critical of the live action adaptations of animated films
Hmm.
or, games, whatever it is. But as someone with a lot of experience reviewing film, what do you think often goes wrong? Does it fall on the filmmakers, the fans, or a mix of both? And do you think there are any solutions?
I think I might upset some people with some of the things I'm going to say. I'm at least going to rip that band aid off. I do feel like there's a lot of fandoms that get in their own way of enjoying things. Like Star Wars is 100% the worst. Like to the point where it's just like if it's not exactly what I wanted it to be, I'm gonna hate it. I'm like, if you want to make a Star Wars movie that's exactly what you wanted, you go buy the rights from Disney and then get money and then go make the movie. So like I'm one of the people that like I really like The Last Jedi. I don't think it's a front to Star Wars. And it's one of those kinds of things where it's just like, I wanted Luke to be this badass Jedi master, and he's just a grumpy old hermit who's been disenfranchised. I'm like, stuff can happen. They're like, it's not true to his character. You haven't seen this character in 30 years. A lot of things can happen to somebody in 30 years. And yet, a lot of people forget that he was just a whiny little crap in the first movie, like legitimately. And it's no wonder that Anakin was also whiny. It's just like, well, father like son. But that kind of thing where it's just like, I try my best to go into things without a bunch of expectations because, like, the tricky thing about expectations is you build up something for yourself. And a lot of times, if it's not what you wanted it to be, like, I remember getting so pissed off at Iron Man 3 when that came out because the whole Mandarin twist thing, where spoiler alert for a movie that's oh my God, it's 10 years old at this point. That's a horrible realization. But like, it's like, yes, Ben Kingsley played an actor who got hired to be the Mandarin. He wasn't the real Mandarin. I'm like, I was so mad in the theater. I'm like, are you kidding me? And now I can watch it and think it's hilarious because that whole scene and reveal is absolutely hilarious. But sometimes it's just expectation. So I will put some of it on fans. But when it comes to video game adaptations, it's not on the fans because a lot of the times they're crap. And I think the challenging thing is like certain things just don't work as movies. And so, like, case in point, Mortal Kombat. What did Mortal Kombat start as? It's just two people fighting each other. There's no story, there's no structure to it, except it's like you just go on and fight the next person. Like, I think the best adaptation is the 1995 one, which is absolutely campy as hell, and I love it. It's a fighting tournament. How else are you going to do that?
Yeah.
And like I hated the new, like there were so many things about the new one that I hated. But like it's really hard to find certain ways to adapt some of these games. And like some of the games it's just like, but why? Why are you adapting this into a movie?
Yeah.
But like I feel like there's certain ones that write themselves. It's like, how could you not figure out something to do with Super Mario Brothers? Like that early 90s movie is just straight trash. And it's because they disrespected all the source material. Like Bowser is just Dennis Hopper. Yoshi's a yellow like raptor. It's just like the Goombas had one thing. They have big heads and little bodies. What do they do? Big bodies and little heads.
Just went where
I'm
they
just like, and I'm well, it's hard for me to get excited for the new animated one because Illumination makes a bunch of mediocre animated movies, and I'm just like, please don't let this just be a stupid mediocre animated movie from Illumination. Can have a bunch of minions pop up in it. But I think the thing is a lot of video games are hard to adapt. If
Yeah.
you have a great story in a video game, it could be pretty easy to adapt. Just look at The Last of Us.
Yeah. That's a great example
I
of
never played the game, but I've know like it's a beloved game, and from what I understand, it's very cinematic and made sense to be adapted. And
yeah.
that show ripped my heart out and made like destroyed me on a weekly basis for 9 weeks. It's like, oh my God. All the way up to the most recent, like the finale. I'm just like, okay, well, I'm glad I get a break from this for a while because I don't know how much more of this I could take, but like that makes a lot of sense. One game that I don't get why they've never actually adapted is Legend of Zelda. I think the tricky thing is it's really hard to make fantasy stories work.
Mhm.
So maybe they're just not bold enough to try to make it work. I'm very excited for the D&D movie. Like I feel like from the trailers it seems like they get the gist of like, a bunch of people acting ridiculous and trying to do some kind of quest together cuz what else is D&D but a bunch of people acting like a bunch of idiots trying to do a bunch of stuff together. The fun in it. Um,
Yeah.
so to answer your question, I think the biggest people to blame for adapting these games poorly is those who are making them. I just feel like they're not getting the essence of like why this is loved in the first place. And some of them they're just picking bad choices of things to try to adapt that don't make sense as a movie. My biggest thing is how do you keep getting Resident Evil wrong?
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I didn't think about that one.
I'm just like, because obviously you had the Paul W.S. Anderson movies, and like after a while, he was just doing his thing with his wife Mila Jovovich, just doing his own thing. And like my brother Ethan, who's a huge anime fan, Ethan's much more into cosplaying and anime than I am and stuff like that in video games. Most of the video games I play are either Pokemon or baseball or strategy games. So like, but the thing is, it's like, what makes Resident Evil scary? They barely have any bullets, and it's a terrifying situation just being dropped in this mansion. What do? Give everybody a bunch of guns and stuff like that and endless ammo, and just like, that's not scary. You having like four bullets trying to navigate something terrified in this dark mansion, that's scary. And I don't get why they keep messing that up. Because, like, even that most recent Netflix series, I don't even know what the hell that was supposed to be.
I heard it was terrible. I didn't watch it, but I heard like almost only bad things.
I don't feel bad spoiling this part of it. Texted my brother, I'm like, did I have a fever dream or was there a giant zombie crocodile like the size of a city block at the end of the show? Because like on some level, I thought I dreamed that because I'm like, it can't possibly be in it. He's like, nope, that was in it. I'm like, wow, what the hell was the show? It's like it felt like it had nothing to do with Resident Evil. They just plopped Resident Evil across the front of it.
But I heard.
And that's disappointing. But I have to say, there's been a nice upswing. I like Detective Pikachu. It's not perfect, but it's fun.
Yeah.
I love the two Sonic movies. Jim Carrey being like 90s Jim Carrey again, being Robotnik was fantastic. And I look forward to those movies. I think Ben Schwartz was a good choice for Sonic, um, especially after they changed his look from that horrifying like human teeth thing.
What I was thinking.
But like I'm hopeful. I just wish Illumination wasn't the one making this new Mario Brothers movie. And
Yeah.
also, as an Italian American, Chris Pratt, you better not F up. Don't mess up my Mario. The main reason I'm super excited for it, though, is Jack Black as Bowser. Like, I cannot wait for that. And also, I'm half expecting Donkey Kong to whip out a big doobie because it's Seth Rogen playing Donkey Kong. And I'm just like, is he gonna like do Seth Rogen laugh at a Donkey Kong the whole entire time?
That's
But anyway,
I'll be hoping for that when I watch now. I'll be
well,
thinking
yeah, if he doesn't laugh like Seth Rogen, then why even get Seth Rogen to play Donkey Kong? I've had a lot of fun watching them do the press for it, especially Jack Black showing up in cosplay, dressed up in a Bowser onesie. If you haven't watched that interview on the Kelly Clarkson show, it was hilarious.
I
So,
have to. That's funny. It sounds funny.
so I know that was a long roundabout answer to your question, but in the end, like the video game stuff, I think it's on the creators. And with anime, I don't know. It's like it's obviously not people that love the anime making these things because it's very obvious that they don't know what makes them good. Like, I really want to know if M. Night Shyamalan ever watched Avatar: The Last Airbender. And also like what was the deal of like casting a bunch of white kids in a whole bunch of roles that are like they're Inuits. The Water Nation is just like, and then you have like these blonde hair, blue eyed kids, and you're just like, what?
No, what?
I thought it was an interesting choice that they changed the Fire Nation to Indian characters and like Dev Patel and stuff like that. But like, I feel like one of the biggest thing of earthbending the whole entire movie is they're chucking pebbles. I'm just like, what? It's like Toft can do that with like a flick like that, and just like these big grown men just being like, "Yeah, I'm earthbending," and it's just like a rock this big. I'm just like, you would never watch the show, did you? So I feel like those are the kinds of things. And with most of the live action anime, the fans aren't being overly critical. They're mostly bad. So, and I feel bad for fans who are just like, I can't wait for this, and then get manipulated into checking them out because it's like, oh, it's my favorite anime. Now we're just making this to get money off of you. We put no effort into this. So hopefully, I feel like that new Avatar live action show on Netflix is going to be a make or break kind of thing because that pisses off people. They ruined it. Ruined
Yeah.
it so bad. But we'll have to see.
Mhm.
But Chelsea, thank you so much for your question. That it's a definitely interesting question, and obviously could have a lot of conversations.
Mhm.
So it's mostly those who are making it, but sometimes fandoms can not be the best, and
Understandably so.
yeah, but which I'm a member of a lot of different fandoms and stuff like that, and some of them just like I'm eating good, just enjoying all the fun stuff that we get out of it, and sometimes just like I get mad at other people who are also fans of it, and it's just like, do you even like this anymore? Kind of thing. But
Yeah.
anyway, but Chelsea, thank you so much for taking the time and joining my show and chatting a lot of anime for this episode, which was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you so much for having me twice now. It was a pleasure the first time and a pleasure again this time as well.
Absolutely, and I would be more than happy to have you back again. So, and I'll guarantee it won't be as long since the last time. It was funny because I started trying to go back. I'm like, who haven't I had on for a while? They were on 100 episodes ago. That was a year, 2 years. I'm like, what? Time flies,
It really
doesn't
does.
it? But thank you again, Chelsea.
Thank you.
And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.